I'm going to show you quality weapons that you may not have seen before and give you 5 really fun and powerful builds that you can use in the DLC and base game, and all of this is going to be for the most previous patch 1.16. Now our very first build is a build that I put together because I had never really seen anybody use this weapon or really even talk about it. It's a weapon that you get from regular Messmer soldiers in the Shadow of the Erdtree, and that is the Messmer Soldier's Axe. This weapon wants so badly to be the Warped Axe, but it's just not quite as good, with the Warped Axe having an S scaling in strength, and this weapon is going to have a quality scaling of B in both strength and dexterity, so it's just not going to give you as much damage, but we can still pour out a really good amount of damage here. Now, in order to figure out how to make up for the loss of damage between the Warped Axe and this weapon, I've come up with a really fun playstyle using Bloodhound Step to allow you to have the most ridiculous amount of mobility, to where, as you can see so far, I'm just running circles around Messmer and he's not able to hit me very well. The other thing you're going to notice with a few of these builds is the fact that I am using the Rakshasa armor set, and a few comments have mentioned in my previous videos how I'm always wearing this set, and yes, it would be dumb not to, because the Rakshasa armor set gives you a free 8% damage increase, and if you don't want to use the Rakshasa set, just don't use it. But in order to showcase the best builds that I can, I have to have a armor set that is going to give me free damage if it is offered, just so you guys can see how well the build performs. Now the build is going to focus on using heavy charged R2s, as I found that that seems to be the best way to get the most damage out of this weapon, and we also have some really good survivability and quality of life with this particular build. So what you're going to use for this build is you're going to have the Messmer Soldier's Quality Axe with the Bloodhound Step. You're also going to have a dagger with Golden Vow on it. I have the Rakshasa armor set, as I stated, for extra damage. You're then going to use the Crimson Seed Talisman because having all that HP restored in your flask is awesome. We're using the Axe Talisman for our heavy charged R2s, the Two-Headed Turtle Talisman for Bloodhound Step because you really run out of stamina fast if you don't have this, and the Two-Handed Sword Talisman to get 15% more damage on our two-handed attacks. Now for our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we are using the Blood-Sucking Cracked here for the extra 20% damage, and we're also using the Spike Cracked here for our charged heavy R2s. And with your stats, you're going to have 60 Vigor, 18 Mind, 28 Endurance, 50 Strength, 40 Dexterity, 7 Intelligence, 15 Faith, and 11 Arcane. For my buffs, I am using Flame Grant Me Strength and Bestial Vitality to kind of offset a little bit of the Blood-Sucking Cracked here. Next up, we're going to be looking at another Messmer's weapon, and this is going to be the Messmer Soldier Spear. Now, I've done a strength build with this weapon using Royal Knight's Resolve, and it's absolutely broken beyond belief. However, I wanted to switch things up and put a quality build with this and focus on heavy criticals. We are going to be using the Misericord Dagger with this and boosting our crits as much as possible in order to spike our damage whenever our critical happens. Now, criticals happen with this build insanely fast. We are going to be using Impaling Thrust and heavy charged R2s with the Axe Talisman, and because of this, with one Impaling Thrust and a charged heavy R2, since there are 2 hits to the Messmer Soldier Spear with its heavy charged R2, you are going to break a stance in 3 hits incredibly fast. Now with our Dagger Talisman equipped, as well as the Blade of Mercy and the Misericord Dagger, which has 140 crit on it, you are going to be getting massive chunks of critical damage off multiple times per fight, as you are breaking stances incredibly fast, as I've just stated. This is a really fun way to play, and with the armor we're wearing, we do have over 51 poise, so you will be able to trade a little bit of damage. Now, the argument can be made for this build that you could put the Spear Talisman on as well if you want to do a little bit more damage, and you're more than welcome to do that if you find that this particular playstyle isn't exactly what you want, but this is the build that I've come up with, and I think it performs very well. Now for this build, you're going to use the Messmer Soldier Spear with a quality Impaling Thrust on it. You are also going to use a Misericord with the Golden Vow Ash of War for one of your buffs. Your armor, you can use whatever you would like. I have one that gets me over the 51 poise mark. If you want more damage, obviously use the Rakshasa armor set here. I have the Shard of Alexander, the Dagger Talisman, the Blade of Mercy, and the Axe Talisman for the heavy charged R2, as the spear has a unique double hit. Now for our flask, we're using the Stone Barb Cracked here and the Spike Cracked here for the heavy charged R2s, and to make stance break a lot easier. And for our buffs, we are using Flame Grant Me Strength as well. Now, when it comes to stats, you're going to use 60 Vigor, 18 Mind, 28 Endurance, 50 Strength, 40 Dexterity, 7 Intelligence, 15 Faith, and 11 Arcane. Now for this next build, I had actually forgotten that it was a quality weapon, and that is going to be the Stormhawk Axe. Now, I actually really like this weapon, and because of the Enraged Divine Beast Talisman, which is going to raise the potency of your storms, the Ash of War Thunderstorm has actually become a lot better. Thunderstorm is going to run you to spin around in a circle, building up successive attacks, as well as doing lightning damage to your enemies, and we're also going to be boosting that as well. Now, I also decided to two-hand this weapon because the two-handed sword talisman is going to give us extra damage there, and with some recent patches that have come out, axes actually have a faster swing speed, so while two-handing this weapon, you're going to have incredibly fast swings, allowing you to build up successive attacks and, in some cases, break stances. Now, I would be lying to you if I told you that I didn't want to just spam the Ash of War for this weapon, because that is how you get the most damage out the fastest, and with the talismans and flasks that we have set up, it's going to be a lot of fun for you to play. If you did want to put the second Stormhawk Axe in your other hand and do a dual-wielding moveset, you could definitely do that, but I found that the two-handed moveset of an axe is actually better, in my opinion, than the dual-wielding moveset. So for this build, we're going to be using the Stormhawk Axe as well as a dagger with Golden Vow on it. You can use whatever armor you would like to get over 51 poise. If you want to use Rakshasa for plus 8% more damage, you can do that as well. I'm using the Shard of Alexander, the Rottenwing Sword Insignia, the two-handed sword talisman, as well as the Enraged Divine Beast Talisman. For my flask, I'm using the Lightning Shrouding Cracked Tear and the Blood-Sucking Cracked Tear. And for my buffs, I'm using Flame Grant Me Strength and Beastal Vitality. The stats are going to be the exact same as you've seen in the last few builds, and this is all being filmed on New Game Plus 5. Now for this next build, we're going to be looking at Dane's Footwork. Dane's Footwork is a quality weapon, and it's a new weapon coming to us in the DLC, and this build is an absolute blast to play. Not only do you feel like a Kung Fu master, but with the armor, talismans, and flask we have equipped, you're going to be doing a lot of damage based on successive attacks, as well as your Ash of War, and this is going to do a ton of damage. Now, one thing that's really nice about Dane's Footwork, especially against normal humanoid enemies, is that your attacks pretty much stun lock your enemy entirely, as you can see from the Dancer of Rana fight right here. Now, we are going to be using Whirlwind Kick for the Ash of War, which is going to cause you to jump up into the air and kick 3 times, slamming a 4th kick down onto the ground, and typically this is going to do a really good amount of damage, and you can nicely tie in a heavy charged R2 right after the Whirlwind Kick Ash of War to continue your damage train, and this build is also going to give you really decent mobility. We also have a talisman that is going to boost our attacks right after we roll, so you're pretty much going to be moving the entire time with this build, whether it's rolling on the ground, dodging, jumping up into the air with your Whirlwind Kick, or backstepping into certain attacks. Now for this build, we're going to be using the Dane's Quality Footwork with Dryleaf Whirlwind because we are building a successive attack build. This is going to help us build up those attacks very quickly. Your dagger is going to have Golden Vow on it, as we don't have enough faith in order to get Golden Vow for the incantations. You can use whatever armor you would like to get you over 51 poise. However, the Divine Bird Warrior Greaves, although they look stupid, do help you get more increased damage on your kicks, so this is important for the build. Now, moving into the talismans, we're using the Shattered Stone Talisman for stomping and kicking skills. We're also using the Retaliatory Cross Tree Talisman, which is going to increase our attacks after we roll or backstep. And we're going to be using the Rottenwing Sword Insignia for the successive attacks, as well as the Shard of Alexander. Now for your flask, you're going to use the Greenburst Crystal Tier and the Thorny Crack Tier. And for your buffs, you're going to use Flame Grant Me Strength and the Dagger of Golden Vow, and your stats will be the exact same that we've seen in the previous builds. Next up, we're going to be looking at a quality Pata build. Now this is a really fun weapon to use, as it is a fist weapon. You are going to attack incredibly fast, and this fist weapon is going to have the most range out of any fist weapon out there. Its range is actually a little bit ridiculous, so typically when you would be missing with other fist weapons, this one is going to make contact with bosses and enemies. We are going to be pairing this weapon with Endure just so we can tank a few hits while we stay in close and build up that successive attack really fast. We will be using a ton of different successive attack boosters in order to make this build work, and once this build gets up and running, you are going to do a lot of damage very quickly. I will say this build does take a little bit of uptime to get going, but after all of your talismans proc, you are going to be having an absolute blast. Now before anybody says anything in the comments, I am aware that this weapon is much better as a bleed weapon or a strength weapon that has Crag Blade on it to break stances. However, because this is a quality build video, I wanted to make sure that I didn't lean on either of those damage types in order to get a good build out here. Now for this build, you're going to use the Quality Pata, which is going to have some decent physical damage and both B scaling and strength and dexterity. We're also going to use Endure so we can tank some extra hits. I'm using the Misericord from the last build with the Golden Val Dagger. I'm also using whatever armor you would like to get you over 51 poise. I'm using the Two-Headed Turtle Talisman, the Rotwing Sword Insignia, the Milson's Prosthesis, and the Spear Talisman. Now for my flask, I'm using the Opaline Hard tier, as you are going to trade damage with this build, and the Thorny Crack tier for those successive attacks. Now when it comes to our stats and buffs, obviously we have Golden Vow on the dagger, and we have Flame Grant Me Strength here as well. And these stats on the left-hand side for your ease are going to be the exact same as they've been for the last 4 builds. And guys, there you have it. That is going to be it for our quality builds video. I'm going to be either doing Strength Arcane or Dex Arcane next, because I've already done Faith, and we could potentially do Intelligence builds next also. So leave which one you want down in the comments. I'm going to be doing a few more top 5s before we move into the next video series. And if you're excited for Night Rain, leave that down in the comments as well, because I am beyond excited. So once again, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe and like the video on your way out. And until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.